This is my fully functional XC Falcon. It runs, it drives smoothly, and it stops on a dime. But what if it didn't do literally any of that? What if we took the 6-cylinder out of this that runs like a dream, has been running perfectly for 50 years and there's absolutely nothing wrong with it, and we put that in the bin and then put a V8 in it? And then we took these brakes, got rid of them, and put massive Wilwoods brakes on there instead. Why the hell do I do this dumb shit? Now you might be thinking, but Matt, won't putting a V8 in the car just make it better? Won't putting bigger brakes on it make it stop better? Well, absolutely not. Because I'm putting in this bloody thing, which is a huge 351 cleaver, 5.8 litre, if you will. And the camshaft in this thing is essentially just a steel pipe with a bunch of Mount Everests just positioned along it that spin around and push the push rods up and down. This thing is lumpy as all hell. But putting this in, it might be more reliable because it is a fresh build, it's a fresh engine, whereas that engine in it at the moment is 50 years old. But I mean, it's completely built. There's a lot of custom parts on this, and I'm not just going to drive it and idle around. I'm going wide open throttle every step of the way. So the likelihood that this is going to throw a piston out the side of the block increases dramatically. What do you think of that, Sugar? Give me a paw if... Give me a... She's on board. She doesn't need any explanation about what's happening. She's on board. And in terms of the brakes, big old Wilwoods here. Just because I'm putting bigger brakes on the car doesn't mean it's going to stop better. You've got to think of the master cylinder, the volume that the brake fluid has to now travel. So instead of filling the chamber of one piston, it's now going to do it across 4 pistons. So distance of the brake pedal moves fluid a lot less, more force is Pascal's law, all that sort of fluid dynamic stuff. I'm sure you can understand going from essentially 2 pistons at the front to 8 pistons is increasing the volume a little bit more, changing the dynamics of force and all that sort of jibber jabber. So I could put these on and it could stop much worse because of the master cylinder I have. So there's only one way to, actually there's multiple ways to find out. I can actually just do the maths before I commit to doing this. I can actually see what size my master cylinder is and see how much fluid is moved within the piston range. So I know that this is actually a viable option and whether or not this will increase or decrease my braking performance. Or I could just slap them on because they look sick. And if you're watching this video right now thinking, oh, is he going to go through the dynamics so I know which master cylinder I need to get to do this conversion myself? No, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to put them on. Put them on because I've got big rims up the front and I need big shiny calipers. If you've got big rims, you need big calipers. Rule of the universe. The Mustang, big calipers. Although they look ugly as shit right now. And that's... She just sees me sitting down and she has to come in for a hug. Now, before we get into that, last episode, I mentioned I would 3D print some pieces for the interior, and those were the parcel shelf pins and the seatbelt cover clip thingies. The little clips that go over the seatbelt here on the pillar. And that was because the ones you get from Rare Spares are trash, a literal trash. They actually look nothing like the originals, and they rub against the seatbelt, stops your seatbelt from retracting. It's just all around, just poor quality stuff. This is the Rare Spares part. As you can see, that's the sort of design it goes. It slips over the bolt. You can see that design, it sort of slips over. When in actual fact, it should clip onto here first and then clip on top, but that's not how it goes. You got to slide it down, and when it sits in position, it's rubbing against the seatbelt. That doesn't even go. It just jams up on the seatbelt. It always falls off. It's trash. And this is the original. As you can see, there's no slip-on component. It just pops onto the rail, like so. Allows you to access the bolt and then clips back on top there. Factory, works perfect. So I don't know why they just didn't copy that design and mimic that. Anyways, I 3D printed this. And this was the first iteration. I printed it in ABS plastic, so pretty much looks somewhat identical. Obviously a bit flatter, a bit of a prototype. Turns out ABS plastic was just a bit too rigid, and with how thin it was, the rigidity of ABS you didn't really have the flexibility to pop over that rail and then stay in there. Whereas this plastic has a little bit of flexi to it. This one did not. And what I've ended up with is this, which I printed using PETG. Now, the support kind of stuck to it here, so don't worry about that. And the only issue I had with this was I accidentally made this tab a little bit too long, so it clips on there. Great, goes on there. Sometimes can be a little bit of a bugger to clip over the bolt, but look at that. Good to go. You want to access the bolt, you can access the bolt. Put it up. Now, it is in the silver because that's the only color of PETG that I had. So I'm gonna get some black PETG and print the actual ones. And as you can see on this one, I fixed the support issue a little bit. Obviously, I can sand them down and make it super smooth, but these are essentially prototypes, which I'll have to obviously lessen that little tab on the back so it clips over a bit easier. But yeah. So, first component, seatbelt bolt covers, printed, done. That was easy. And then we had these little parcel shelf pins, which when I put this custom parcel shelf in, it's now raised a fair bit more than what the original one was. So the pins that were original didn't quite fit, and they weren't threaded. They just sort of were plastic that was the same size as the threads, and you could just thread it in and it would lightly grab onto it. So I decided to print these pins and actually give them the thread, which is 5/16 thread with a 18 thread pitch. So they go in. And the fact that I only had silver PETG actually works quite in my favor here because the suede is gray. Now, as you would have seen in the previous video, this is obviously just like almost a prototype panel. That's why this is 2 pieces stapled together. I have ordered the black suede, so we'll just grab 1 piece of MDF instead of 2 and stapling them together and put the black suede over the top. But for now, these will do. On the next iteration, I might even put a recess for these. I don't know. I'm using my hand, but as you can see, I've got the slot for a flat blade screwdriver, which I might make bigger because the slot is too small for my little stubby screwdriver to fit in there, and there's not much room here. If you want one of these covers, because I understand people probably have the same issue as me, they're using the Rare Spares one and they're absolute trash. If you want one of these, just send me an email. I think there was a couple of guys that actually did email me asking if I could print some off and sell them to them. So I'll get some black PETG and I'll print a couple of these in black. But yeah, if you want them, send me an email. But Matt, you can't just install Wilwood brakes on the X Series Falcon range. You have to actually do a lot of modifications. For instance, you've got to drill the existing stub axles. Yes, I know, I've already done that. I bought these brakes so bloody long ago that I've already done the install on the XA. You have to drill out and tap the threads or something. I can't remember, it was that bloody long ago. But it's already been done. And look how pretty this is. Why is it covered in water? Well, that's because it was so long ago that I did this and they've been sitting for so long, they were covered in dust and they looked real shitty. And I wanted to make them pretty for camera. So I gave them a little tickle with today's sponsor of the video. Bowden's Agent Orange. I'm kidding. Bowden's don't sponsor me. I just use their shit. Now, I'm the sponsor of today's video. I'm the sponsor of pretty much every video. It hurts me financially. It's crippling. It's a rough time. I mean, look at my current tool situation. I had to take my toolbox to work, which means I don't have a toolbox for here, and all the drawers and roller cabinet. Anyways, the hubs are already done. They're already drilled. They're ready to go. It's literally take the spindles off the XC and put these ones on, and then bolt the calipers on, and that put the brake pads on, and that's it. That's the adapter brake lines. I got them. Everything's there. Should be a pretty quick little jobby. Now, I was gonna wait until I put the V8 in it before I did the brake conversion, but screw it, why not just do it now? Right, straight off the rip, getting this tie rod off, which, because I've taken all this off recently and replaced it with new ball joints, new tie rod, it shouldn't be too hard to get off. The old sacrificial nut works every time. Next up, upper ball joint. Ooh. This is why living where I live is a bad thing, because those hammer hits are reverberating through the entire area. It's a quiet Saturday. I guarantee you can hear that 10 streets over. I mean, even my voice, I talk quietly sometimes because I can hear my voice echo out the street and come back when I talk normally. So, sorry to everyone in my street, but this is the last one, and then I've got to do it all again on the other side. Out with the old, this weighs an absolute ton. Cast iron caliper, that whole caliper is just made out of iron. Popular conversion was the alloy calipers from the XFs, but this still runs the big old cast iron caliper, and it weighs a ton. So before the new one goes on, I've also got to change this brake line here. So let's very gently undo the hard line, put the new line in. Oh, thank God. All right, stainless line is on. Let's get this new spindle on, get the caliper on, get that line plumbed up. So we lose a minimal amount of brake fluid, because I just realized I don't have any brake fluid here at the moment. I'll have to go out and buy some more. Having a white line sway bar makes this much more difficult to do if you don't disconnect the sway bar, because the sway bar is bloody stiff. It's a good bloody sway bar, but because I've got the really bloody low springs in this, the sway bar link is super short, which makes this super tight. Now the other thing is there is spaces to put between the caliper. As you can see, we've got a machined surface right there. So there is spaces to get it dead center in here. And I have already worked it out what spaces work for this. So I'm just gonna watch my own YouTube video from years ago and see which ones I used. Just to start off with 2 shims per bolt, we go from there. So that's pretty much it for us. Oh, that's all I did? 2 shims per, okay. Per bolt. Plus I'm gonna put some Loctite on these bolts. So that's what it looks like. Bolt one side, shims on this side, going into the hub. Just space the caliper. Obviously trying to get the disc as central as possible. Bit of Loctite blue on these ones. All right, I'm even gonna bloody torque them up to the correct spec. All right, hang on. I did find Loctite red. I only put Loctite blue on there. I didn't know I had Loctite red. So I'll put Loctite red on there and then we'll torque them up. And these bolts are spec'd to 3.5 American bald eagles. Now we'll have to see how that line clears once the rim is on. You might have to sort of twist it at this end and at this end, but for now, that'll do. Might even have to guide it somewhere along here. But let's get some pads in her. Don't just slot it in and rest. You've got to line up these holes here, so. There we go. Do the same for that side. Put this retainer back in. And we are good to go. After I put the tie rod end back on. Now I'm not sure if the camera caught it, but when the fluid dropped out of the caliper, it was shitty looking, a real dark sort of colour. Now it's gone green. So obviously stuff in the lines was good, but whatever was sitting in that caliper was absolute trash, probably just rusty and shitty. So probably good that I'm doing this. Well, I mean, obviously it's good that I'm doing this, but yeah, you know what I mean. All right, as we can see, that looks bloody stunning. Like I said, I'll put the wheel on and I'll figure out sort of how that brake line wants to go, and also probably just put some sort of clamp or something, or some zip ties to keep it from rubbing, but it is braided and it does have a protective plastic coating on it, so should be okay. But god damn, that looks bloody beautiful. All right, now, obviously, same to that side, but I'm not gonna bore you with doing that side. It's exactly the same as what I've done there. Just flip the video, and that's the process if you really wanna bloody know. But I'll see you guys when this side is done. Didn't work last time, did it? Oh, there we are. All right, so that side's done. Oh, God, doesn't that just look mucho pretty? Only thing is, I don't have a brake bleeder here, so I should have brought one of those pneumatic ones from work. Should have brought that home, but yeah, she hears me talking and she thinks that she's missing out on the most important things in the world. Like I was saying, I don't have a brake bleeder here, but Ash is coming around this afternoon, so I'll get him to bring one of his brake bleeders and I'll trick him into coming over to bleed the brakes. There's nothing worse than rocking up to a mate's place and he's got his project car in pieces and he's just looking at you with a big smile as you drive down the driveway. That's me. I am friend with smile. I'll just crack them, let gravity get what it can out, and then I'll stick the wheels on and we'll see what it bloody looks like. How frustrating is this? I've got this SP Tools brake bleeding spanner kit, specifically for doing this stuff. None of these fit the Wilwoods. It's just smaller than 3/8, so it's the size below 3/8. 8 mils too small, 9 mils too big, 3/8's too big. And don't ask me what size is under 3/8. No one knows. No one knows Imperial. Absolutely no one. You don't know it until you're looking at it and you see it and you physically see that it's smaller than the one that you currently have. That's the Imperial system. All right, I managed to crack the actual bleed screw of this, so. All right, here's my plan. I'll try and bleed them now. I'll put pressure on the brakes and then I'll hold it with like a pry bar and then I'll come around here and crack it. We'll see if that works. That's pretty good. Oh. There we go, it's doing all right. There we are, already starting to get some feel into the pedal. So I just continued doing this dodgy way of bleeding for both front calipers. There's 2 bleed points per caliper because there's pistons either side. So just vaguely did that until it was flowing somewhat okay and the pedal had some kind of good feel to it. Phew. Oh, that does look bloody sexy. What are you doing, sugar? Whoo-wee. Would you look at it? That is hot. Dude, you can even see it from the front. That's how skinny these bloody wheels are. Hey, doesn't that look the tits? Let's get in a little bit of a better position. I think it matches the car. Having the big tyres up the rear and the skinnies up the front, you got to have the brakes to support that kind of setup. Now the only thing missing is the engine. If you can just imagine that, but with the sound of that Clevo idling. Obviously the pedal's still a little bit spongy. I can definitely feel it grab. Even though the pedal's spongy, I can feel it sort of get to a point where when I really put it down, it just grabs the front wheels. So I think once it's bled up, I'll have no issues because it has an updated master cylinder. I think it's a slightly bigger diameter than the original. So that's taking care of that issue. The only issue, and obviously with changing parts, those stub axles were off this XA Ute. Now you'd think that they were identical to these XC ones, and they did look identical, but just because they come off the same bloody car and they look identical doesn't mean they are, obviously. These must have a shorter knuckle because I'll show you what the car looks like. We've got all of the camber on the bloody planet on the front right, the driver's side. we've got all the camber plus tow out. So, I mean, I've got brand new camber adjustment bolts as well. I might put those camber adjustment bolts in and we'll do the old shoestring or the old string alignment, if you will, because the camber bolts that are in it currently, when I took it to get the wheels aligned for the roadworthy, they were kind of flogged out in the pin. The spaces were kind of flogged out and they wouldn't allow you to actually adjust the camber. It was kind of just flopping around. So put those new camber pins in, we'll do a string alignment and get it somewhat better. Also, I didn't touch the camber, but it's just the dimensions of the steering knuckle. This has come off an XA, which might mean that the top sort of goes in a little bit more or something like that. I don't know. Righto, got the car and ramps. Here are the fresh camber bolts. There's the old worn out mother lickers. Now, luckily on the journey to get this car registered in Western Australia, I had to take those bolts out, put in the new lower control arms. And if you've ever done lower control arm bolts, you know you've essentially got to cut them out. 9 times out of 10, you got to cut them out. I had to cut these ones out. Luckily, the XA had some lower control arm bolts it wasn't using, so I was able to use those. That's why they're worn out and shitty and old. So hopefully I can get those out quite easily. Pretty sure I did lube them up before putting them in. Hopefully this is a quick one. Undo the nut, pop it out, put the new one in, off we go. All right, that goes to show that's not going to do anything. You're not going to be able to adjust your cam bolt when you get that much free play. Yeah, that doesn't do much. So in with the new, look at that, beauty.
So after adjusting the camber on the passenger side, that actually fixed the tow issue, and it was only the driver's side that needed a little bit of a tow adjustment after the camber adjustment, and that was it.
And it's done. I took it on a little test drive last night on our way down to the local cafe. Because it was my birthday, so we thought we'd go down for a cheeky beer and then come back and get the boys around for some Halo, which, mind you, is the peak male night. Pizza, beers, Halo on the projector. Can't go wrong.
We're all going to do the same time. Yeah. This is going to be very confusing.
Yeah.
Not inverted. Ha! Oh. Who are you shooting at? He's shooting at his team. Oh, I thought it was a different car. I was looking at the other screen. I was like, what's he shooting at the girls for?
Were you trying to snipe me by any chance?
But all I really had to do was adjust the camber. Those arms must have just been different lengths on the lower control arms for the knuckles. So adjusting the camber, sort of pulled them in the right way. And I think I adjusted the toe on the driver's side wheel, just so it towed in a little bit more. And it drove perfectly. So another step in the V8 conversion done, upgrading the brakes. They're still not bled yet, fully, so might pop out today, grab a pneumatic brake bleeder so I can do it myself, and the correct size spanner for that tiny little bleed nipple. But yeah, I think it looks bloody sick. It just adds to the whole car's vision of looking fast or sitting still. Also, how's Ash's VL? He left it here. He got an Uber home last night, but while this is still here, I've got a pretty sweet looking driveway. Kind of reminds me of that scene from Two Hands where they're planning the bank robbery and they've got the cars parked at the front. And in today's money, it's like $500,000, probably like $1 million worth of cars, but back then it was just bogan cars. Anyways, that's it for today. One step closer to the V8 conversion. One more thing ticked off the list, and a big bloody list it is. But if you've watched up to this point, surely that deserves a subscribe, or at least a like. Stay tuned, and I'll see you guys next weekend.